You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 49. Today's episode is another listener question of the week, where we're going to discuss how to lift your business to that 6 or 7 figure level. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, listeners, James Wedmore here.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
Welcome to the show. This is the Mind Your Business podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is our listener question of the week segment, where our listeners just like you, are submitting their questions about business, entrepreneurship, mindset, manifesting, and more, so that we can answer them here live on the call. And I'm really excited to get into today's episode, but I figured I'd check in with Phoebe's first. How's it going, Phoebe?
Good. I'm excited. I love our listener questions, and when we go through them, I just love seeing what people want us to talk about. It's my favorite part.
It's kind of hard to choose the right one. Like, there's so many to choose from, and we have to just pick one.
Exactly. But I want to encourage people, if you do have any questions, please make sure that you do submit them on mindyourbusinesspodcast.com so that we can go through and select anything that you want to hear about. That's what we're here for. We're just offering up our opinions on whatever the questions are.
Our opinions.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just creates really great discussion, really great opportunities, and new perspectives, new ways of looking, new ways of thinking about things.
So let's get into it. This question is from Astrid Mueller. She says, I love your podcast. It's so inspiring and helps me to think outside of the box. Your How to Think Like a CEO episode inspired me to this question. How big can you grow your online business as a solopreneur with just a small virtual team of contractors versus employees? It sounds like you guys had to bridge a gap to be able to lift your business to the 6 or 7 figure level. What was that point where further growth was stalling? And what shift did you have to do in terms of building a team? I have a vision of getting to 6 figures, but would like to keep things simple and the team and overhead small, virtual team versus payroll employees, to remain flexible and location independent. Possible? Challenges? Pros and cons. Thanks so much if you can address that. And as always, thanks for an amazing show.
Awesome. Well, Astrid, thank you for the great question. It's a big question. There's a lot of questions in there. Really, what I'm hearing from this is, how do we take that leap from being the solo entrepreneur with maybe a part-time VA or two to turning this into a team that's got your back? And I know when that shift happened for me in my business. So even though this is a big question and a big topic, I feel like I have a really simple answer here for you today that I think is going to make a big difference. So the shift from going from solo entrepreneur with, handing out a few tasks to building a team happens first when you create the distinction between what an assistant is and what a manager is. So if you hire a VA, that's an acronym for AVA. For a virtual assistant, an assistant is someone who does just that. They assist you. And when someone is assisting you, chances are the way that things work is they're just taking some tasks off of your task list. You got 10 things to do in a day, and it's like, hey, could you do these 2 things over here? And a lot of times they don't even know why they're doing them. Oh, okay, you need me to do this research, or oh, okay, you need me to mail these thank you gifts, or oh, okay, you need me to set up a landing page. Got it. And that's fantastic, because we always want to find ways to let go and get more of our time back and leverage our time and focus more on the things that we are great at and the things that will make us more money. There's a rule that I like to say, it's the 5% rule, right? That 5% of the activities, there are just 5% of activities that need to get done in your business that have a direct impact and result on the 95% of the results that you're trying to create in your business. Just 5%. What are those 5% activities? You should be focusing on those, and you should be letting go of the rest. The problem is that if we just start hiring assistants, we end up taking on another action item that we didn't ever see when we originally created our to-do list. And that is the action item of managing. And that's something that I didn't discover until I was knee deep in assistance, right? That you're like, okay, here are my 10 items. If I get a VA, I can give them 2 items. Ooh, now I just got an hour back in my day and I only have 8 items left. But then you have to realize, hold the phone, wait a second. I just added one more item to my to-do list, which is called managing the assistant. And the shift happens when we can attract or promote or hire someone at the manager role. So the distinction or the difference is that an assistant simply just helps you with tasks. A manager actually takes on the responsibility for a specific measurable result within your company. And that is it. That is what fills the gap. As Astrid asks, how do you bridge that gap? And the answer is you have to take the leap to hire and attract a manager, not just an assistant. That at one point, if you want to grow and build a team, those team members have to be responsible for certain things in your business.
Right. And I don't think that when I was looking at, my own business, one important thing I wanted to note here was, I think people get really overwhelmed when it comes to, well, for me, I can speak for myself, but I get overwhelmed when I think about hiring a ton of employees. That for me is super overwhelming. Then you have to deal with payroll and all this stuff. And I think that that's what Astrid is kind of alluding to in the question, that doesn't actually need to happen. Not all businesses need to have these payroll employees, or, you could build a 6-figure business with a simple VA, or a couple of them doing specific tasks. So if that's something that is of interest to you, just to keep it really small and simple, then I think that's definitely possible. And just making sure that you are very clear on the fact that these are assistants. And, I think that's a really important distinction that you were talking about, James, with the managers actually being responsible for the concrete results, but then they also can see the bigger picture. And I think once those managers are invested in the bigger picture, even if, that's not something that they want for themselves, but it's something that they're working in your business and they know kind of the path that you guys are headed on, I think is really important for you to kind of communicate to a manager versus someone who is an assistant who doesn't necessarily need to see the bigger picture.
Yeah. And then a manager can then have assistants. And that's where it gets really powerful. So you want to start looking at areas in your business. So first of all, you can't throw enough money at someone being in charge of being the visionary and the growth driver of your business. You can't outsource that. So that'll always have to be you. Where's the money coming from? Where is the vision being created? That has to be Astrid. That has to be you, right? But then you can look to other areas like, well, who's in charge of customer support? And you can have a customer support manager. And you could say, well, who's in charge of driving our traffic and running our Facebook ads? And you could have a Facebook ads or a paid ads manager. And these are people that are responsible for specific results. You say, listen, I want you to spend X amount of dollars per month and keep my cost per lead or my cost per acquisition or sale or whatever below this certain number right here. And now you have a very specific result that you're requesting of them that they're either going to hit or not. And you can have, people that are responsible for all kinds of measurable things that happen in your business. Now, obviously, part of that bridging the gap means someone who is a manager, well, since they have more responsibility, that usually tends to come with a higher pay. But that's really, in my opinion, what it takes to grow when you feel like you've kind of hit that plateau. Like it's just you and a VA or two filling in the gaps and helping you where you can. That next growth spurt comes when you're willing to invest back into building out the right team, a great team, people that can be responsible for certain things in your business. So is it possible to stay small, remain flexible, location independent? Heck yes, absolutely. The beautiful thing is you get to build your business any way that you choose, any way that you want. And we've had other episodes on this where we really ask the question, do you really want to grow? Do you grow simply because people say, oh, that's the right thing to do? You don't have to do that. So I like to start by looking at what are my goals? What is the financial number I'm after? What is the business I'm creating and what will it look like when it's done? And then I say, well, where do I fit into that? Where are the areas that I need to be? For this, no one's going to do my podcast for me. No one's going to create my courses for me. I got to be in those areas. No one's going to be the visionary for me driving my business. So I need to be there. But then sometimes when I go, well, I got some big goals. I can't be everywhere in my business. I can't be answering customer support. I can't be managing every other person on the team. I can't be doing graphic design, all that type of stuff. And so it's about attracting the right people to do that for me. But the beautiful thing is the power of the internet is you can find virtual assistants. We have a podcast on outsourcing. You can find graphic designers. You can find programmers, overseas, virtual, etc. for relatively inexpensive prices. And that's a beautiful thing. What we do want to mind you of is that unless you bring someone on as a project manager or a manager type person, you're going to end up managing all these people. So you could have a couple of virtual assistants, a tech guy, programmer, graphic designer, maybe an overseas video editor, all these people. But every person you bring on is really going to take away from what you do because someone has to manage them. No matter how good your systems and your checks and balances and your project management software is, someone's going to have to manage them. Someone's going to have to make sure, did this get done? Who's checking the work? Who's making sure there's no mistakes? Who makes sure they're on track? And you have to have that role filled. So who is going to be the person who is responsible for this? So right now, let's say you have a virtual assistant that helps you out and you write blog posts. So you write the blog post, you give it to the virtual assistant and you say, upload it and format it on my blog. Well, they're going to do the work, but who's checking the work? Who's making sure it's getting done? Who's making sure that there's no mistakes, no typos, no nothing? You can say, well, the virtual assistant. You go, yeah, but who's checking their work? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have someone in place, which is fine, you don't need to, it will have to fall on you. And that's something I think people don't really realize. They hire assistants and then expect them to be a manager themselves. Like, well, they should have just not made any mistakes. And it's like, at the assistant level, like they need to be managed. And that's either you or it's somebody else. And so you got to make that decision. If you want to build a very lean team, even if it's just one or two more people, you're going to have to commit and realize that, yeah, you're going to have to manage those people. But you don't have to if you bring someone else on to do that. But those are the specific roles, and even just being a manager, like someone who's just making sure everyone else is getting the job done on time and in the right way. That in itself is a full-time job.
I remember when I have done this for some of our launches, it's like I didn't feel like I was actually working that hard because I'm used to doing the work as opposed to managing people. That was a really tough distinction for me when it came to like making sure everything was running smoothly and we had all the pieces in place. But that's because I knew what the end goal was. I knew what the our definition of done was, and I knew what it was supposed to look like. So I think that there are opportunities for managers to kind of grow and take on, I guess, new roles inside the business, depending on where you're headed or where your business is headed.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the Steve Jobs example of being the conductor of the orchestra. Maybe you didn't have that much quote unquote technical, tactical work to do, but the pressure was on you. Mm-hmm. That if they disappeared, if they screwed up, it doesn't matter. It would still be on you.
Yep.
And that is very, very important that you compensate a manager for more simply because there's more on the line for them.
Right.
If Phoebe's managing a launch for me and it messes up somehow in some way, like someone doesn't get a graphic back in time and we can't send out an email and all this stuff, she doesn't get to blame anybody else, and because she took that on as a responsibility. That's what responsibility is all about. That's what being a manager is all about, is saying like, well, I'm actually the person responsible for all these people under me, that the finger is pointed at me if they're not doing their job. Mm-hmm. I think it's very easy to build out a team of virtual assistants and part-time people and then find yourself going, holy cow, all I'm doing is managing these people. And so one of the things we like to do in our team is really identify their role of responsibility and then attract a team for them. So as you guys know, Phoebe has her own virtual assistant, and depending on what project she's working on, has other people that can help her out so she can stay in that manager role and just make sure things are getting done. Mm-hmm. So I hope this helps, Astrid. The most important thing here, this distinction between, do you want assistants? Do you want to be the manager, or do you need a manager? And ideally, really, as soon as you bring on at least one person, someone has to take on a manager role. And it might be you right now, wanting to get to that next level, making that leap to lift your business to that 6 or 7 figure level. will happen when and if, it's not required, but it will happen when you decide to bring someone else on at a managerial role, which means they are responsible for a specific result. Like if it's a customer service manager, every email is answered within 24 hours of being sent in. That is a specific result and measurable responsibility that is required of them. And if an email takes longer than that, then they're not doing their job. And they could build up a team to help them and support them and make sure that they're hitting that result. But you can measure everything for every role or position that a manager fills. But when when you're just giving someone a task list, like here, I need you to do this week and do that week and do this and do that and just feed the tasks, they're not really responsible other than just that task in the moment. And you still have to manage that. Did they get that done? I can't even remember, right? Let me check in on that. I don't even know. They didn't even get back to me on that. That's where things can get really messy. But when you have a manager who can just, here's what you're responsible for, and they handle it, that's where you scale. That's where you grow. So I hope this helps. These are variations of questions we get all the time when people are looking to grow and what it really takes. This is what has been our personal experience, my personal experience. So I hope that helps. I want to thank you guys again for listening to the Mind Your Business podcast. To submit your listener question of the week, head on over to mindyourbusinesspodcast.com and submit your question or inquiry there so we can have a discussion around it and hopefully give you clarity or a new perspective or a new way of looking at it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.